Hello, everyone, and good evening. And thank you very much again for tuning in to Chasing the Puck Live. And, big thank you for everyone for the last couple of weeks that have asked how we are. Well, we've been on injury reserve, having man flu. If you have had that disposition before and you've had man flu, you know how difficult and how tough it is. So to shake that off to be with you tonight is something to be thankful for and glad that we're able to do so. It's been tough, but we're back where we wanted to be. So, what's changed since the last time we had a show? A couple ones in 2025, but this is the first one back. Of course, with a new jersey. Maple Leafs is the jersey of choice for me. I mean, as someone idly put it, says that you must be a glutton for punishment for the teams that you support and follow in the hockey world. Take that how you want to. That's absolutely fine. It'd be remiss of me, really. There's only really one thing that we have to start with on tonight's show. And, it's one of those things, really, that it's kind of something that we've waited so long for to happen. Something that, a lot of people have probably taken by the wayside and thought, would it ever happen again? Would we have one of those moments to savor, to enjoy? And would they be able to do it again? That's the thing, is that it's been done once already. And it's been one of those circumstances that, everyone's looked at it and thought, is this the time? Is this going to be the place? Is what's going to happen? And all we can say is congratulations to the Five Flyers for winning a game. I bet you were expecting something else. But obviously we did do the vote on social media to say which game people wanted to discuss first. And just clawing it on Facebook and Twitter was starting with the Five Flyers. So we're going to start there. And of course, if you are a Cardiff Devil fan and you have taken the time out from the celebrations that you guys have had over the weekend, I'm sure we'll be talking about you as time comes. So that's absolutely fine. So, yeah, let's talk about Fife. One thing that we kind of did was a lot of people kept saying that the bingo card was too easy. We kind of made it a little bit, we played it safe. I think that's probably the crux of what we've had recently. So we put on this weekend that Fife win a game. Of course, this isn't me going, okay, Fife must have won because they saw that and thought, let's get that on the bingo card, or Storm probably saw it and thought, well, we better give them a chance. Of course not. That's not how we see it, not gonna how we think everything works in this world. But it's been one of those things, if you can read body language or anything like that, it's not a crux to say really of how things have been for them over the last couple of weeks and months, really. I mean, bodies, how short they've been, the support, the injuries, the bans that will, I'm sure, take place sooner or later in the special dispensation that they've had as a group. But for them to win a game, it's something that, from a standpoint, really, from league side, it was actually really refreshing to see. And, you kind of get these ins and outs, really, where, one team win and it's good job, little buddy, and stuff like that. But there's always that connotation, really, where, depending on what team it is, one particular fan base will have their point across to come to say. And, it was still the same. I think a lot of people were kind of relieved and quite happy for Fife to have that victory on Saturday. And, it's, as an outsider looking in, I mean, I didn't get the stream at Manchester. So kind of did the things that, the old-fashioned way of just going through social media and hitting the beats as and when it was happening. And, they went down in a position where they were kind of just... We've seen it all before, really, where, Fife have gone down by a couple of goals and capitulated, or they've put themselves in a position where they've just damaged limitation. Goals have just been flying in left, right, and centre, and then people could be posting what they wanted to post. Will they survive? Will they be? a team by the rest of the season. Who's next? Well, da 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 da. But this is the thing, you've got to credit them. Seeing them against Steelers on the Sunday for the Pride weekend in Sheffield. It's one of those cliches. People kept saying, would love to give the players a hug and stuff like that, and we're in such a position where it was hard to watch, and it was. But for them to, the spirit, the team unison, and being in a position where they could actually, not act defeated and just obviously go through the motions, and actually be in a position where they were clawing themselves back into the game and making the game as exciting as it needed to be. The drop of the gloves and the fight happening during the game as well. And it kind of just, it kind of came within a 1-goal game. They equalised. And then this is the thing, is that hope is the thing that can kill you. And you kind of look at it and you think, okay, they've pulled them back into such a great position. What's going to happen? And it is obviously they're either going to get it to overtime and then lose, and then it was just so close, but they got the point, and something to be really pleased on and build towards between Panthers. But for me, to be fair, they were in a position where they took the win. This is one of the things that, there's going to be games where they're going to be in such a position where they can't get out of the blocks. There's going to be teams that are just going to have that level of class, that are just going to score a good couple of goals and then just hit them on the counter with them being very defensive and put themselves in a position where they're not going to get anything out of the game. But the game plan, Johnny Curran, his staff, his team, and everyone, supporters that made the trip. I mean, of course, they had family being there at Sheffield, and how many followers were there at Altrincham on Saturday. It's tough, making those trips where there's no guarantees of looking at it and what they wanted to do. And it's a very difficult one, because you look at it and you've got to look at the wins that you can find. And, from a group point of view, playing week in, week out, getting bodies through the door, getting the injuries back, to go to a game where, if you look at it on paper, how many people were probably in a situation where they were just going to go, okay, well, this is, an easy 2 points for Storm. And then they've got to make, obviously, the trip back home. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Another thing, really, is, playing Saturday in Altrincham, either stopping over or making the bus journey back to get in their own beds early hours of Sunday morning. Nottingham playing in Nottingham, and then Nottingham making a trip up to Fife for the fixture later on in the afternoon. Kind of, that's a weird one, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Or if obviously you want to throw some questions in the chat, please do, because there's quite a few questions that have gone through the Google form over the last couple of days, so I do appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, Fife to get that win, yeah, it was on the bingo card. It made life a wee bit easier by having them on the bingo card and actually having a win. And it kind of looks like, what are the chances we put it on there and it works? But don't take it away, for a group and the relief that they must have felt to get the win, that kind of where you can breathe out and just think, because the pressure that must be on them week in, good time on the ice, performing, working on the systems, for it all to come together and getting 2 points, it's a testament. I mean, they hopefully will win more games. I mean, there's a few questions really that have kind of come through, let's hit them while we're on the Fife subject, is that, can Fife survive the season? I think they will. I think there'll be more victories and more closer games as the weeks go on. John Curran has done wonders for coming in as a player to get injured, to read the room and be supportive, because he's been there, done that, worn the T-shirt. And, I've got a lot of time for the guy, if I'm honest. Really kind, respectful, resourceful, speaks really well, and has put his heart and soul into the team when he has. And, I'm sure he'd love to be on the ice helping them as best he can. But with injuries and whatnot, the circumstances kind of bring through to the table. They've just got to do what they can possibly do. will Fife take the record for the worst team in the league? And I know obviously that was kind of brought up in the weeks that wasn't around about the points. Dropping it through if they don't get the points. Looking at the Capitals and obviously the Knights as well, the London Knights. If obviously people can go that far from the historical teams that were in the league way back when in London, Knights as well, and Capitals, and this is the thing: is it's not good reading. There's still plenty of points on offer. There's a lot of teams that will looking to be as resourceful as they can. Of course, by signings, what they can bring in with what the dispensations are, will they pick up a point between now and the end of the season? Yes, they'll pick up points. Will it be majority of them getting teams to overtime and maybe taking the chances on the penalty shot, or will they go on a run? I can't answer that, but it'd be nice. It would be really nice if obviously they can get some points. I don't think they'll be the worst, but it kind of opens questions that, I'm a Nottingham boy. Obviously, I know the Nottingham and Derby divide, and I know it's not hockey, but it's football. But, I was there when Derby was the worst team in Premier League history, where they only got 11 points, which still hasn't been beaten today. And, that was built upon buying championship players, trying to bank as much money as possible and trying to survive in a Premier League where they were getting absolutely battered and stonked every week. And, change the manager midway through the season, damn limitation, bring bodies in that they could. Different sport, completely understand that. But you look at everything that happened to Derby in the years and years that passed from that happening in 2007, that they've kind of actually risen from the ashes to build themselves as what they needed to be today. So the biggest thing that I think Fife can take away from it is that learn from the mistakes that were done this season and just make sure that they never rear their head again, that they have to recruit right, they have to get Brits through the door, and they have to support what they can, which kind of leads into one of the questions. It's kind of mixed in because it was like, which Brits would look good at Fife or Dundee in the next couple of years? And, National League, but this is the conversation that we had. It's a very big, tough decision to get those bodies through the door with what you want to be paying, what you want to develop and bringing them through and supporting them for the next 3 to 5 years to build, because these Brits are, they're few and far between. This couple that are through the system where you can get, and we had the conversation a few weeks ago about getting someone in for half the season, show them what they can do, have a break clause at the end of the season if they get a bit bigger and better offer somewhere down the line, but give them a chance to prove themselves and do something. But I think Fife are going to do okay. Great that they got the win. There's a little bit of squeaky bum time on Sunday where would they not get the win over the Panthers? It would have been great if they got a 4-point weekend. Could you imagine how much everything would have changed the tune and something that would have brought in conversation-wise? But they're on the right track. Fixtures, if you look at it, there are some teams that we're going to be talking about that people have asked about their form, with their yo-yo form and how bad they've been in the last couple of weeks. They've just got to pick their wins. There's the top echelons that you've got to obviously compete and try and get a result from those teams. But there is going to be that little cachet, little group where the points will probably go between them, and also overtime shared points. And we'll go through those teams shortly. So let's go to the questions board. So we've got quite a few. So one that's came in is PWHL team. Do I have a PHWO team? Yes. Toronto is that. Would it be surprised? Before that, obviously before the change, hockey-wise, it would have been Boston Pride. And obviously with the changes that happens, Johnny Rowe's sister played for them as well, did an interview with her during COVID. And that was Team Boston Pride. But Toronto, got to keep with the particular colours, the particular mindset of those. That's the team that I've kind of looked at as well. And looking at the other questions, favourite rink for atmosphere. So I covered that a couple of weeks ago. I'll probably say this season, the game and the rink that I've had that I've enjoyed the most fun and the most atmosphere that's been there has to be Glasgow. Really enjoyed Glasgow's rink for atmosphere. Sheffield was great, CHL games, and the noise that was there, especially if they're playing like a Belfast or Panthers or anything like that, kind of brings it through. Nottingham had some great nights, great atmosphere there as well. Dundee was a really good night. Enjoyed that when I was over there. Fife as well. But one atmosphere that, I've not been to, that was looking at especially over the weekend and over the busy sold out periods, has to be Cardiff. Of course, we'll cover them in great detail, but I think that's a great atmosphere. That's one that I'm looking forward and excited to experience firsthand. So next one is favourite season. Favourite season for me has to be 1920 season. I mean, it's not anything for any trophies, and of course, it didn't finish all the way. That one kind of just because that brought me back to writing and interviewing again, and being in such a position where I wouldn't be here today without the 1920 season, which obviously gives me the caveat that, of course, the 23-24 season was great because obviously it's the season I got engaged. So if you think, obviously, I'm not a netminder, but that was a pretty good save. If anyone has any disagrees why I didn't say that in the first instance, but obviously the 1920 season, not 1920, but the 2019-2020 season was the one where obviously I made the comeback, and it was good to be back watching hockey again. So really enjoyed that. So yeah, let's go through. Next question that was obviously kind of brought through was Cardiff. I mean, obviously making the joke at the beginning about it's been so long, waited, who thought we would see this in our lifetime kind of thing. And we mentioned Fife at the very beginning. We kind of have to say, Cardiff, it was great, as a neutral as I am, seeing that, Panthers have won the Conti Cup and, Cardiff doing it. And this is the thing, I get what people were saying about, certain players weren't allowed in, certain teams wasn't allowed in. It was kind of built towards it. But the old adage, the old argument is you only can play what's in front of you. The new system that they had where they're going to spread it over 4 days over the 3 gave an opportunity for the chance for players to rest. Of course, that kind of broke up the weekend a little bit, where a little bit of confusion about actually Sunday if that was the final game for about 5-10 minutes, but that was fine. That confused me a little bit, but this is the thing, is the way that this season's, not just this season, but if you look at Belfast, how well they performed in the Champions Hockey League when they won the Grand Slam, and we're just inches away from getting where they needed to be into the next round. And then you carry that on with the Steelers as well. Really great performance in the Champions Hockey League. Get through to the next round. Play a really good Berlin team and get knocked out. But then this is where the conversations wise is about how can the sport be bigger. And the last couple of days we've had the article from Anthony on Banners the Wall about how that can grow, and then also, of course, the post on Twitter today, Mark Brooks as well, and the CEO of Ice Hockey UK, of how we can build the sport, make it bigger and better, is to see people talking on a stage about UK hockey. I mean, it's a good feeling. Everyone likes to win. Everyone likes to see a team win a trophy. Of course, there's a level of conversation where people are probably not as happy that it was Cardiff, but that's team mentalities and whatnot that kind of rear its head. But really great performance. I mean, to be fair, the way that the scoreline was, it was probably written in the stars a little bit earlier than some people wanted it to be, from that kind of, is it going to be squeaky bum? But, for being a fan in the rink, it must have been amazing just to see that scoreline, and just because what I always find is you always dream, when you're in a final or where you're there, it's like, what's going to happen? Can this be it? Can this be the moment? Can this be where we want it to be? And, some teams might have a really good first leg lead, and then the team comes back in the second that you never think, that's kind of thrown into the national hockey teams recently over the last weekend with the scorelines and the deficits that have been returned. But, all that day is spent, what could happen? Is this the time? Is this the dream? And then to be in a game where, the score's tight And then one mistake, one decision, one penalty can make all the difference. But to be in the ascendancy with such a scoreline, it must have just been so relaxing. Well, relaxing is probably this is the thing for being an outsider. I'm just speaking in there. I mean, it probably wasn't relaxing for some of the fans there, that they're probably on tenterhooks, on edges to the very last moments. But you look at it and you think, how good that must have felt. And, success is one of those things. If we want to grow UK hockey, is we want to be great domestically, but also in Europe. And I know there's not many opportunities like that, but when teams are signing players from different continents and, different parts of the world, it gets people talking. And that's something that we need to do. Word of mouth is going to be something that is probably a big factor. And, a lot of people have had that discussion about is how do we make this sport bigger and better and stronger, and, BBC, ITV, Sky Sports, whatever socials that people want to, that mainstream. So, yeah, I mean, the thing that I would say with that is that, for ourselves and others as well, we've spoken and banged the drum for hockey in the off season, our own time. And, this is own time, really. I know I love speaking to you guys, really do. But we try and bang the drum for hockey and try and get people engaged and invite people. People might click on it and see, new fans and want to start from somewhere. And that's the thing, is that, yes, it'd be great to have these bigger corporations with this bigger eyesight, engagement, view, reach to get people engaged, seeing games and stuff like that. But, in some ways, I really enjoy being that kind of person that can speak about hockey here. Obviously, when the podcast comes out, any articles that we do, any videos that we put out, it's nice to have that. And it'd be great for it to be a bigger audience, of course. But you're the ones that kind of take your time this evening to listen to it on demand, live. And it's good fun. And, you've got to credit it that that's what we want it to be. We want it to be as big as anything, but maybe little caveat for that is that, of all the stuff that has been done over the last year or so, it's just nice to deliver what we can and be that small little piece for everyone to start and enjoy hockey and doing it again. So let's have a look at the questions that have been thrown up on there as well. So Jason Grande's performance for Panthers following the absence of Ryan Bernard. The thing is, from a net-minding point of view, middle of the season, I've always said, I always make that joke from Todd Kelman when the Elite Series happened. Says that's a good pickup. Something that's just stuck in my head. Everything that happened in the Elite Series, that's something that just picks in my head. But that's a good pickup. And, obviously Hunter having to go back for family issues and bringing somebody in, that this is the tough thing that, it's probably not a conversation for me to have, is there's a toughness where from the import slot side of things, and having a Brit in the lineup to have more imports in the Elite League, is that a lot of people are reliant on Brit netminders. And, there is a time when certain netminders will want to play, and there's some that are happy just to be on the bench to be that number. But this is the thing that kind of throws me, is that, not to throw anyone out, is that there's probably some teams along the line where if there is an injury, that would be the only time you would see a netminder be brought on, is that they're kind of not there to be thrown upon into the deep end. So to have an injury like that, you have to be concerned that, he would have probably been playing injured, but having a netminder that can actually push in to bring the best out of the recovery side of things, for Ryan and Jason to come in. Because that's the thing, is he's probably training with his two teammates for a couple of weeks, got to know the area, got to know the systems quite quickly. And then he's been thrown upon and thrust upon to really great performances. How he's not got a man of the match yet at home, but I think when he does, that's going to be rah-rah and a big celebration. But this is the toughest thing, bringing a netminder in. It's a lottery. What can you find in the market that's readily available, readily to play, that's fresh as a daisy, that can go in and perform to a high standard? it's tough, and they've kind of hit the needle. I think this is probably the most exciting time for a long time that Panthers have been with the netmind and tandem that they brought in and the ability they've got. And if they're standing on their head, and that's performances why they're probably fourth in the league and in this buying game against Clown coming up on Wednesday, they'll be very, very happy with that because that's obviously where the area's probably been lacking in a couple of years. I mean, if you look at Alex DeBow, Kevin Carr, they've had some really good netminders in the building, but it just hasn't clicked and quite worked. And if you're looking back to Kowalski time eras and going back that way, it is a tough one. And then kind of keeping on the netminders question is someone asked on the Google forms, who's the best netminder in the Elite League? And I feel like this is a loaded question, if I'm honest, because, if you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, but got to be honest. There's one person who's standing heads and above everyone at this present moment in time that's been playing bar injuries and anything like that, and that is Matt Greenfield. And, from a conversation wise, I mean, he's a damn good netminder. He probably kept him in the game, really, against Clan on Friday from what the highlights and everything looked like that. Scored at the opportune times, but, his performances, if he wasn't there, it could have been a very different game looking there. That is one of the key things there where he's performed well. The shutouts. I know the league posted up about the statistics or anything like that, and the argument would be is finding a really good person that will stick around for more than a year as a netminder is that's probably going to be of all the signings or all the recruitment, and it's really weird because we're in January, is that you Steelers will probably look to see if they can tie him down for a further year. I mean, he's probably getting offers in and around if he's not already, where there's probably an opportunity to move somewhere else and get playing somewhere else. But it's probably one of the toughest things to find a player of that magnitude and performance. And then I was kind of talking about it to Karina the other day, is that if you look at Rock and Barry Bruce, and if you think of Matt Greenfield and Oscar Osterland, is they do the 1A, 1B system. And not by chance, I think that's very unfair, is that, that was kind of the position before the injury to Oscar doing the star jumps in pre-season. Then Greenfield just came in and just showed his ability, his performances straight away. And, that's sometimes that's that little bit of luck. You can do all the recruiting in the world, asking if they're a good person and look at tons and tons of videos, but that has to be good recruitment and just the right amount of luck as well, that, he comes in, performs as well as he did to such a degree that it's not been 1A, 1B for the last couple of years. Tony Maroney, DeFilippo as well. It's basically been, when it's been a rest, same with Curtis coming in as well, doing the imports, the GB and import side of things, is that bar the injury that Greenfield had for the last, 2 and a bit seasons, he's performed to such a high level. There's not been a dramatic drop-off where people get your number, people understand how you can do it and find weaknesses and find ways to get past you. So I think the last couple of years, really great netminder. Obviously, there is some other ones that, again, ample opportunity in game time. Matt Robinson, Bednard, Adam Long as well. There's names and questions on there, which kind of leads me into another netminding question, is that, it's very particular to teams in saying about Fife and Dundee, of which netminders could they look for Brit side of things for the future. And it's a very tough one for me because, I'm not an agent or anything like that. I'm just, I'm not going to start naming people just to be like a good deal. But I thought long and hard about this question. And I thought if there was a couple of Brits that could just go in, make a difference and make a start for those two teams and have 20, 30 games in a season. Sorry, obviously, for the National League kind of teams there. But, Sam Gospel looks like a, really good netminder. Obviously, Jordan as well, Will Curlin, Luca as well. Max, might be only young, might only be 17, but he's got a future ahead of him. as well. Really impressed with him. Tyler, absolutely brilliant as well. There's these young buddies that when people says about development league and says anything about what the future of this is going to look like, is there is bodies, there are names that are there that with the right tutelage and the right opportunity will probably be the names in UK hockey for the next 5-10 years. And it's up to us, obviously. This is the thing I've always said about the hometown hero kind of vibe. Of it's great having an import in. I know what it brings to the sport, absolutely fine. But there's just something good about it where that someone who's been brought up in the area, knows the area, the struggles, the trials, the tribulations, that comes good. I mean, I'm not from Maltby, of course, I only know where Maltby is now because Karina pointed it to me on a map. But when we went past, but I mean, you look at the story of Liam Kirk, how he's performing, his career to this moment, everything that he's done. I mean, wouldn't it be good to see one or two players in the next 10, 15 years in my lifetime to have half of what that opportunity has come across his way, or even go further? Someone to be to the level of Tony Hand, we'd love to see it. And that's the dream. I might be a dreamer, but as I can see, I've got a Maples Leaf jersey on. I've got to live through hope and something actually happening. So we'll go with that. But one other area that was kind of thrown in was always a good question. Is hockey really a family sport? See, I think this is another one of those questions where people are just waiting for me to say something. But, I took my nephew to hockey when he was in his early teens. He enjoyed the fights. He enjoyed the moments. Didn't understand the rules. Still tried to teach him as best I could. From a language point of view, he's probably heard worse playing on a football pitch in the last couple of years than we'd ever hear at hockey. I've never been in a position where I've seen anything there that, I've been on the football terraces. I've heard and seen some things that, you don't really want to hear and you don't want a young kid to hear. I don't have kids. So it's a very difficult one for me. They love the sport, they love the mascots. But the kids of the future, regardless if you say it's a family sport or not, is that, in the hope of, the hooligans that were at Clan a couple of weeks ago as well, is that when I'm long and gone, the next people will take their place either as the next, you might be watching a show from them. They might have started watching hockey from a young age and they want to follow the careers of journalism and do something like that. Absolutely fine. But I have no qualms. I've never had an issue whatsoever of having kids at a game. It's quite fun, actually, seeing them all jump around and try and get a puck, laughing and joking, especially when you put a kid near the plexi and they get the first bump towards the plexi and you see the absolutely fear in their eyes that they didn't realise they were this up close or anything. Downside, obviously, I've seen kids hit with pucks in the head, something that you don't want to see or hear or endure. But I think there's a space for family, because if you think about it from a point of view, what makes the sport go as much as it can is if you're a family, tickets, adult, child, food, drink, merchandise, programs, 50-50, well, not 50-50, kids don't really have 50-50, but shirt off the back. And if you can get those to 3 to 5 games a season, that might easily bring towards another player into the roster. Is we can't be needlessly picky or choosy about who comes through the door. Is at this moment in time, there are attendances still great. Still, the numbers are getting higher and higher and higher as the days and weeks go on. But we're not in a position right now where we can just go around and say, okay, well, you can come in here because you're 18. It's not an 18-only club. We need people coming through. I mean, if they win the shirt off the back and it's a kid and everything like that, and I'm one ticket off and it's them who bought it, of course, then it's not a family sport. All bets are off. But I still think, there's a place for it. There's a place for the family, the kids, but also the diehards, that the fans that come in week out. Nottingham have it. They have the the Barmy Army block, Block 19, the noisy block, where they make noise. But that's kind of bought in. That's kind of, you go there, you know what's actually there. Boomerang Corner with Belfast, obviously pop it in the chats if you've got kind of a corner or area. Block 13, of course, Cardiff, Conti Cup champions, can't forget those guys, especially with what was discussed over this week, but we are coming to that. So there is different areas, of course, that, have, kids might see it, might want to enjoy and join in, bang a drum or anything like that. Or if your Leeds night going to Steel Dogs, bring pots and pans or anything like that, or kazoos, or I think it's a kazoo, and the Verveveza from the World Cup. I don't know if I said that right anyway. But, people want to make noise. At the end of the day, if someone comes in, they're not standing on their feet and they enjoy every moment and they're bringing money to it and they're not taking away from the experience, let them come in. I think it's a family sport. I think it's not being sanitized. It's not being changed. And then, no one's making a change. Really randomly, I watch it every so often, but Ice Guardians, I watched it last night just because I was watching Amazon Prime and I was just looking for something to watch. And watching it again, and you just kind of think, I know it's a different time, a different world, and, McGrattan and all those players. And you just think of it, and what the sport used to be, obviously in Canada and America and Europe and everything like that, it's night and day from what we get now. It's a sport, it's an expectation, it's 60 minutes and then the other hours of intermission, everything like that, where they have to cater to as many audiences as they possibly can. They're not changing the rules, they're not changing the sport. It's not like multi-puck happens every so often or something really random that's like on a video game. It's still the sport we know and love. It just caters for all audiences, young, old, everything like that. Everyone's welcome, and that's my thoughts on it. Which kind of leads me to the next couple of questions, which is who do I think is the best fighter in the league currently? It's tough, really. If you think of, the different, it depends, there's a lot of people that kind of throw the gloves. You've got Tansy, plug for Tansy Smash. But as well, you've got her, there's so many, there's Tets as well. You put it through fight, Kelsel as well. There's just so many different people. Dowd, don't mess with Dowd. There's so many different fighters, but the thing is that it's not the age of Ice Guardians again, the Goon and everything like that. Is the old sheriff enforcers not there as it used to be anymore? There's people that are there for their defensive, their attacking prowess. Is no one's on the bench anymore. There's not those old adages of players that just come in to start a ruckus and start a fight, or feistiness. Obviously, if anyone wanted it, 2024-25 season is us putting feistiness. So I'm going to address that in the room, is why do we put feisty or feistiness instead of there's a fight? Because every time I put there's a fight, it does go to Crocodile Dundee that's not a fight, this is a fight kind of mentality. And I love that saying. I really do. I've said it numerous times. And I'm going to keep saying it, is that, on a level, it's very quick, witty video, you get a video, you want to put a witty bit of information on it, something that's funny, catches people attention and stuff like that. So you can get the two players' name with a boxing glove, fists, fight, exclamation points. It's just a lot easier because, feisty. But now people are saying that's not feisty, this is feisty. And you're just thinking, look, I'm just posting you a video of a fight. Just take it or leave it. And obviously, of course, Belfast and Sheffield over the weekend was great because we got the same fight with 6 or 7 different angles. So we got so many angles of feistiness that we could done for a day and a night. But yeah, that's the thing, is that fighting is part of the sport. And I know we did, obviously, on the Google forms of asking people, does fighting have a place in hockey? And 92.9% said yes. There's a very small minority for no and maybe. So people love fighting. It's always going to be there. Which kind of leads me to the question is, if you could choose one player in the EIHL to have a fight with, who would it be? I mean, obviously, me on skates, I'm going to be on the standing up for very long. I'm going to be on my arse quickly as possible. So if there was anyone I was going to say, I mean, Riley Brandt. I mean, obviously, how many posts we've done throughout this season, I'm sure he'd probably enjoy that. But I think, Dowd. I mean, no, everyone says don't mess with Robert Dowd and don't fight Robert Dowd. Is that, regardless of who you fight, you're going to go down. I'm going to go down. So I'm going to say Dowd is the person I'd pick and choose as the one to do it. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. Obviously, it'll take sympathy of me. He knows Karina, so hopefully we go light on me anyway. So, but that'll be a bit of fun. But yeah, thank you very much for the question. To ask who I would fight in the Elite League. People can use that however they want to. So another question that was brought in: should teams offer joint season tickets? Example: Steelers and Steel Dog for a discounted price. So obviously, a very small catchment area, really. That you've got the Panthers and the Lions as well. Leeds Knights 2, of course. So there's not many teams, with the Rockets and the Stars, the Paisley Pirates and Clan. So many different areas, really. Billingham Stars, teams that would have that ample opportunity that they could do it. But I think the best way to answer that particular one is that I think Steelers and Steel Dogs have kind of worked what they can possibly do in the circumstances by, the fact is 3 games this weekend, 2 at home, 1 away on the Friday, but work it in such a way where Steelers were in Glasgow and in Belfast on Saturday. So you kind of got that area, that opportunity where you can bring them in. Fans, obviously, keep with, advertise. If you want to watch the stream, these teams have got the stream, of course. But if people want the insight and go deep into hockey and do it, and if you're a season ticket at Steelers anyway, you obviously get the discounted rates at Steel Dogs. And, same with Panthers and Lions. Obviously they were great that they had the big ice on Saturday. Opportunities as well with the free YouTube and, comes with commentary. Highly recommend it if you've not already watched it. Free hockey. Same with, the Jets. They had free hockey. I think that's kind of a big factor, really, of being able to, free hockey, accessible, available for people from time to time, will be a bigger catchment, a bigger area for the audience to take full advantage of, which is absolutely perfect. But I think, at some point, will certain teams that have kind of that team that they can utilize a discounted rate, I think they probably won't add it included into a season ticket as a position because of the fixtures. They'd have to put it in such a way that it's financially viable for example, an I Sheffield to have those teams. But I think having discounted rates for people that go to one game to the other to see as much hockey as possible, but then also don't price people out that want to go and see Steel Dogs, the Scimitars, or anything like that, is a really good ample opportunity. Because this is where the sport's going to grow, is that, I always look at it and think, there was a time where I could not afford a ticket every week. I couldn't afford a season ticket, and the way my job was at the time, I couldn't afford to go to a game, so you had to pick and choose. So it's a very tough one. People have to go and say, well, we'll go to this game. It's an £8 ticket game. It's a reduced rate game, or it's near a payday, so it's easier for us to do it. But when you've got teams that are offering tickets for such a rate, and it's good hockey, please don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking it down because it's National League, it's Morey League, or, Morley League, or if anything like that, is that they provide entertainment night in, night out that they play. And, that's probably one of the biggest regrets this season, really, for me, is that I've not got to as many games from further down the pyramid. And, that's something I'm going to be definitely looking at as the season progresses. But if you've got the chance now, if there's not a game on, your team's not playing, buy a stream, go to a game, watch it, see it, enjoy it, get hooked, a second team. So yeah, this is where obviously people will go, well, you know, you can only support one team, but you can have a second team if you want. More the merrier. Get in, enjoy it. So let's have a look. So questions there. So we've done the fight in Belfast and Sheffield. You know, looking at that, everyone was kind of remissive of, you know, who punched first. Was it a unwilling combatant? You know, videos showed that no one threw a punch. Someone did throw a punch. It's always different opinion. And I will say this really is that, you know, people talk about rivalries in sports and, you know, geographical location. And you know, you use examples like Celtic and Rangers, Forest versus Derby, and Liverpool, Everton, and Man City, Man United. They're built in by geographical location. Belfast and Sheffield ain't that close together, but the rivalry that's happened from the last couple of seasons is kind of the one game that I really enjoy. I know saying Manchester and Sheffield or Guildford versus Sheffield, not the results because of all the animosity that happens, is they're the games now, home and away, that they have a little bit of a bite. You know, it's a guaranteed rent-free, salty, obsessed. All those things come out of play, but something just happens to both fan bases before the game, during the game, and after the game, where it kind of makes it, if you're not part of that circle, really, it's great entertainment and great popcorn because sometimes the action on the ice bleeds into the stands and bleeds onto social media. And there's a lot of talking points for days and days. And of course, from a bragging rights point of view, that, you know, Steelers fans love it when they beat Belfast and Belfast love it when they beat Sheffield. So a few more games for them to come this season. I kind of have a feeling that, you know, there'll be a couple of finals that will have those two teams in again as the season progresses. Of course, someone's probably going to moan and say that I'm jinxing both teams now. Maybe I'm not. But yeah, they're the two teams this season that it's been a great joy to watch. And then obviously you throw in Devils now that have come through. They're probably on their high, back into performances that need to do in the league. And of course, you know, a lot of people say, you know, does the Conti Cup win affect their chances of winning the league? You know, is there going to be a hangover of winning? I think, you know, breeding that sense of desire of bringing a trophy, tray. You know, obviously, if I say trophy or cup, people are going to correct me. So let's just say it, that they've got the dinner tray. But, you know, this is the thing. They've won a trophy now. They've recruited well. They're going to get bodies back through the door. They've got the ample opportunity to bring in more players. They're still in the Challenge Cup, depending on how that looks and who's playing where and what that, if they're chosen to be played, if they're either playing Belfast or they'll play Sheffield. See how that looks in the weeks to come when people know exactly what's happening in the next stage of the Challenge Cup. But I think it's going to spur them on. If there was any doubt or anything like that of what Cardiff was going to do and bring, you know, they've got success as a group now. They've got a trophy for the first time in a couple of years. So I kind of feel like they shouldn't be written off as well. I think this is obviously the best opportunity for them now. Injuries is obviously going to be a factor to them because they've just had this really bad luck of run of injuries recently. So it's who they can bring back, the form and everything like that. But it is the bounce back, is that, are they going to come back? Is there going to be a hangover from winning over the weekend? I mean, the best thing is that we get to find out next week. If you, obviously, shameless plug, number one, is that we can talk about it next week if you come back next Monday and listen to the show. And we can say, so I'll just say, no, it's not affected them, or yes, it has affected them. So either way, we can splice it and say that I was right. So I still think they're going to be in and around it and about. It's not going to affect the chances personally. If you want me to be on a limb and say what I think, is that I think, you know, they're going to build upon it now and actually be there or thereabouts for the league this year and probably show themselves really well in that. Challenge Cup depend on who they play, but also I think they'll be in the final four of the playoffs as well. But they have had a long season. I think that's obviously the other factor that people have to put in. They did a lot of pre-season games where they played, 20 pre-season games before they started. Extra games from the Conti Cup, everything. Will that be a factor? Possibly. But obviously we're only in January. Those kind of things might happen down the line. And then, of course, continuing on from that is the next question was, will anyone win a treble this year? And this is probably obviously the big thing is that, last couple of years, Belfast won Grand Slam, won the treble. Steelers won it the year after. I don't think there's going to be a treble this year. Another one. So many controversial things being said on this particular episode, but I think this is the year where it gets spread nice and evenly. I think obviously someone might win two, but I think it's going to be a case where the load's going to be shared. And I think that's probably a good thing, really. I mean, if you show the recruitment of the top four in particular, and Coventry bringing up the rear, where they have kind of just brought players in to be successful and be in the best possible position that they could. And I feel like in any particular order, is it going to be shared between the top three? I would actually like to say, I think this time that there's going to be an unfamiliar team that lifts silverware this year, a team that hasn't done it in a long time. Who that might be? Well, if we get to a couple more episodes' time, I might say who I think that team might be. But at this moment in time, there is a lot to play for. There's still a lot of hockey to go. Injuries, form, signings. That's the thing is someone might be able to bring in 2 or 3 brilliant signings before the transfer deadline, submission going through, and then just literally rip the league a new one and find it. I mean, if you look at Belfast, great, bringing in a signing like Goodwin now that they have with his acumen, his brain, and his hockey knowledge in the business end of the season, damn good sign. And, if teams can bring someone like that in and have an opportunity to bring someone in like that, pick them up. It's absolutely brilliant. So question is, obviously I'm going to amalgamate these into, it's 3 questions into one. So the form of Clan, Storm and Stars, is there a cause for concern for those 3 teams? I mean, if you look at Clan, they have these really good uplifts in performance, but then it just kind of goes by the wayside. They just obviously happy. The consistency is that they're inconsistent, where they obviously will win 2 or 3 games in the bounce, lose 2 or 3. Obviously conversations about their ice, their nets, and the pegging. Obviously, do they have a pegging problem? Best thing about that is that you write an article solely merely as a parody joke to put a headline that's quite funny, and some people really obviously need to learn to take a joke, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But yeah, Clan, I think obviously, great coaching Corey, a lot of time, but sometimes their fan base can obviously take something to heart with a particular player or pick a particular moment. They could easily win 5-0 on Friday and then lose 4-0 on Saturday. And then these people were heroes, and then the next thing you know, they could possibly be the worst people in the priority in the entire world. So I think they're going to obviously be there or thereabouts to be great. If you look at where they finished last season, I think obviously a playoff berth would be good. Will they get into the Final Four? Thing is, 2-legged hockey with Corey Nielsen, it's his speciality. So it'd be interesting to see where they finish, who they play, what opportunity they get. But out of the 3 teams that we're mentioning, I feel like they've probably got the best chance. Second one with the next chance is the Dundee Stars. Really good team, really fast, really potent in goal. Not the greatest weekend. I mean, obviously getting shut out against Guildford and obviously changing the netminder after 4 goals and seeing his reaction after the circumstances. Don't take it away from Guildford. Really great performance. You only can play who you're playing in front of you. But Stars fans, they've got a really good team there, but it's just wildly inconsistent. And, they'll try and reach for the Stars as best they possibly can. I still think, they'll be in the top 8, but they just obviously just need to hit that consistency button and get a couple of wins on the bounce. Looking at the fixtures that they've got, this is a team that has beaten everyone in the top 4 this season and have the tools, the talent to do that, and they will. But obviously, this is the thing, is that we've gone from a season where it was pretty much Sheffield win, every other team was all over the place, and now we've got an opportunity where, I mean, if you're a betting person, it kind of pretty much sucks because you don't know with absolute certainty who's going to win. I mean, if you look at Saturday, how many people bet on Manchester Storm to beat Fife? I mean, how many people are out of pocket on that one? That's the thing is never a guarantee, which kind of leads me in to the Manchester Storm. The question is really, what's happened? Top four finished the previous season, and now they're in obviously the bottom two, losing to Fife and not looking good about it. And that's the thing is that Matt Ginn, hell of a coach. The hard work he did. They've kept bodies that were in the previous season, but this is the old adage is that teams progress, they move forward, they bring different people in, they adapt. It just hasn't quite worked. You bring a new coach in, new systems, new ideas, and Storm is a hell of a tough place to play. When you try and see them, obviously between it being on mute and trying to watch what's being played during the game when they're at home, it's a tough watch at this moment in time, which is obviously not ideal. But, I think that's the thing is that a fan base is probably expected, them to push on from a top four finish. Hasn't quite worked. The coaching situation, bringing in as best they can and being on the board, getting the points that they can do, it's been a tough one. I think this is probably another season where, do I think Storm are going to make it into the playoffs? I don't. I think that's the team that's there. I think it's kind of locked in now that it's Storm and Fife that are going to be there. Prove me wrong. If they get a coach in that kind of changes the game and brings it in, I think that'll be perfect. They've got the players, they've got the people to do it. They've got a fight in them every single week. They, can fight, battle and score. But this is the problem at this moment in time. They're scoring 3-4s and then they're conceding 5. It needs to be one or the other. Be a full-flowing attacking team and not conceding, or minimise the goals that you do in an opportunity and shut up shop. Once they get what they want to be in that identity, I think they'll be good. But that's probably another team in the summer that just needs to understand exactly what they need to do. Probably need to make the changes internally and externally of what they need to do and have an identity again. Because, watching Storm play and playing against a Storm team in the past, hated it, because that's the thing is they're just better, they're just physical. They are one of those teams where they will just not give you an inch and they will just take and battle away the entirety of the game. So for them to then not have that this season, it's sad to see, because they have it in their locker. They recruit in a certain way that they know their niche, they know that how they want to play, and it rubs people the wrong way. I know people moan and complain about how they play, but it's successful. It works for them, and they're able to do it in a rink where people don't have that time and space on the puck. They have to make decisions quicker, which obviously has to work for the players that are playing for the team, but also against them as well that have minimal game time there to kind of overcome it, adapt it. So they've got that full opportunity, that full advantage of not having an Olympic size rink, and use it fully to their advantage. And that's what I think they've kind of missed this season, is having that kind of playing with freedom away from home, but playing at home and making it a fortress again. And that's what I think they need to do. So other question that was why can't we add more teams to the Elite League to make it more interesting, so they aren't playing the 5 teams a season? Of course, in the circumstances, that is, financially, is that, a lot of teams having what they do. I mean, I know a lot of people posting about attendances within the different echelons of the league and, people that are coming through and the attendances that they do have. And there is, if money was no object and the opportunity was there, would I love to see Leeds, Milton Keynes, in a couple of years, Solway? I've always said it, the teams there, Hull, the name value alone, the rinks that they've got, and the infrastructure, It would be perfect. Sea of Phantoms, this is the ideal world situation where it's kind of free reign, free paint kind of thing, where money's no object, circumstances no object to do it. Have all the teams in a different league, relegation, promotion, everything like that. Would it be something to bring differently to kind of do it? I can kind of bring that people the ideas, but we've just got to kind of work and make what we've got now the best possible thing that we can have. Is in time that obviously if the opportunities, if there's owners somewhere that have got billions and billions of pounds that thinks, you know what, I really like the look of Peterborough and I want to give them 100 million to do it and bring in NHL players and do it that way, or different franchises or anything like that. Someone wants to buy a franchise. Will the sport change in the next 10 years? I think it will. But we've got to obviously make sure that we're doing what's right for everyone else, because the last thing you want to do is bring someone in and they get demoralised by being pumped every week 12, 13 nil. These young players that have been playing and scoring, performing to the highest level in the National League, that will be obviously at some point the future of UK hockey. You don't want them to get disheartened by playing a couple of games in the Elite League and then going back to National, performing again and just having that kind of market area. Would I love more teams in the Elite League? Yes. Do I see it happening in the next couple of years? Unfortunately not. But I think we're very lucky that we can still watch these teams play, because, I mean, in the nicest way, I think it'd be really great to, see a Leeds versus an MK, Steel Dogs versus Hull, so many different variables, Solway versus Phantoms. Just thinking of a couple of games that happened last week, there are some battles that happen, Hawks versus Lions, Wild versus Lions, Billingham Stars as well, Hull Jets. There's just so many different teams, so many there that have so many different stories to tell and so many excitements to bring. And would it be great for having something new? That's the thing, is when you look at it and there's something new, is you have this excitement, but the last thing you want to do is someone not to come when they're not ready and it's been undercooked and it's just been problematic, because it's just going to cause irreprehensible damage. It might be good in the short term, but in the long term, it might not quite work into everyone's favour. So, other question is why do rinks rip fans off for food and drink? That went to Nottingham and they charge £8.60 a pint. So obviously, the other question is about the cups at Belfast. That was the other question that was asked with relation to it. This is the thing, is that you go to a rink or anything like that, is that 100% of the profits aren't going to the team. Especially for the arena rinks, the key thing is that from a business point of view, for example, Panthers is there that, footfall is coming through because Panthers are on. If there's a gig on at the arena, then obviously the footfall is being brought upon by that. Salt Box is there, the gym bar's there, and all the different areas. And the Ice Bar Cafe the Ice Bar Cafe and Salt Box, to be fair, is open throughout the week, but they're trying to get you in. So the catchment area is that, from a percentage, if, a team's getting 5-10% of proceedings that come through the door, they obviously make it up in merchandising or anything like that. But unfortunately, the rinks and the arenas have carte blanche of exactly how much they are wanting and willing to charge. And, it's been entirety. If you've worked in the restaurant or the pub sector, I worked in kitchens for a very long time. And let's just say, from what you're ordering as food, how much it costs me to cook it and how much I'm paying you for, how much you're paying for the food to actually eat it, is the profit margins for the restaurants are always going to be pretty much 10 to 1 in the circumstances. And that's the thing, is that, if it's Panthers beer, if it's brewery beer or anything like that, there is a cost that they have to service and manage that stuff and that equipment. It might taste like piss. It might taste like proper alcohol. I don't drink anymore, so please don't, obviously. I can't really judge it anymore, but that's where the profit margins would be. They know that you're stuck within a building where you can't go somewhere. This is the old thing about football, is they used to, people used to get to grounds 10 minutes before the game and get tanked up on beer at a local pub with Witherspoons because it was 3-4 quid. This is obviously 8.40. They've got you where they want you. and they'll charge you what they think. The problem is that until people stop paying it, they'll think it's acceptable to charge it. And prices are going up, cost of living as well. And it kind of goes with the question. We did ask people how many people eat and drink at a rink, and about 80% people said that they do eat at the rink. 20% said no, that they go somewhere before a game and they will flat out refuse to buy or anything or drink anything while they're there. But it's costing. The thing is that these properties, especially these arena rinks, will survive on 2 or 3 concerts a week. And from a cash flow point of view, it's probably one of the easiest moneymaker, because if they do merchandise, they'll probably have a small housing fee or get a small percentage of that. They've got staffing costs as well to incur. So the profit margin on a beer, which they probably, maybe £1, that they do staffing levels, anything like that, they're probably marking it up to such a degree that they're probably killing it on a full house Saturday night against a big team or a big concert. So it's not ideal. Please don't get me wrong. This isn't me saying, it deserves to be £8.60. No, it doesn't. But the problem is that you're all looking at it in a situation where they'll charge as much as that people are willing to pay. Is that we could easily be talking about it next season. I mean, I remember the roast dinners. There was one game, it was £3.50. Next game, a week later, it was £4. The game after that was £4.50, and I think it ended up at £5. It was almost like it was a test of wills of how much you're willing to pay for a roast dinner bap. And then the moment is, once it becomes too much, you've got to make the decision. If you go to a fast food restaurant and it's a couple of quid here or there, but then you've got to starve for the next 3-4 hours in a ring because it's a matter of principle. Some people will do it, some people won't. I mean, I remember accidentally ordering £20 worth of food because I didn't realise that it was a platter of chips, not a portion of chips, a couple of years ago when I was in one of the suites. I ate all the chips because it was like 20 quid, but not doing that one again anytime soon. There you go. So other question is, will Giants remain on top of the league after making the points up with their game in hand? Got to credit. Belfast done really, really well. Opportunity around them. I think there's going to be a lot of flitting and flirting between the two teams this season, between who is going to be top of the league and anything like that. But it's so close between them that, these games are going to really counter and really matter between the three. But let's not disrespect the other groups, because easily enough, you might think, okay, they're playing each other, they're going to drop 2 points. But there's an easy thing, Panthers, Blaze, Guildford, they can all start beating these teams around it and make it very interesting and have a big say where the title ends up. And it's going to be fun and exciting, especially obviously with, Panthers have beaten the streak. Panthers playing Cardiff at home. We know what happens there. And Belfast and Nottingham seem to be sharing the spoils this season. And Coventry, very unlucky on Saturday against Panthers. But obviously then they got the win against Guildford there. Consistency needs to be a bit more consistent. But once they do it, they'll be looking forward and ready to go. So that kind of follows pretty much all the questions. I've amalgamated them a lot there. But 30, 40 questions over a couple of days, absolutely brilliant. So, I only can appreciate people taking the time and the effort to send these questions. Because last thing I want to do is obviously not speak about the things that are close to your people's hearts. So do appreciate you taking the time and the effort to do it and taking time to listen. So without further ado, this is episode number 15. Thank you very much for everyone who has taken time to listen, share. Obviously, if you're watching this on repeat or on demand, thank you very much for listening to it wherever you are as we go on. We are nearly at 400 subscribers on YouTube. It'd be really great if we can hit that this week. Really appreciate if you can take the time to do that if you're not following us already. If you are on Twitter, we're nearly at 5,000 followers after the mishap where someone got the old Twitter account banned because used the Titanic music too many times. But we don't name names, Stephen, because that would be very unfair to blame Stephen for what he did. But if you can follow us on Twitter, that'd be great. Same with Facebook, nearly hit the 90K on there. And Instagram, we've just hit 20K. So, this is the thing about hockey is that we wouldn't be doing this without you guys. You're kind of the life and soul of the party. Is that your time playing with the bingo card, laughing and joking, telling us off when we need to be told off, and reading the articles and everything like that. Is that I wouldn't do it without you guys. So I do appreciate it. Obviously, hopefully you weren't too concerned for me last week when I was on the injury reserve, or maybe you thought it was great to have a week off without me. Who knows? But thank you very much from the bottom of the heart. We'll be back next week. There should be some rink tours coming very, very soon. Just sorting out the details when we can go and where we can go. But thank you. Thank you for the questions and everything. Hope you have a great week in hockey wise. Don't be a stranger, and we'll see you all next week. Have a lovely time.